Almost 250 years ago, the American Revolution began. South Carolina had a major impact on the winning of that war, as did present-day Lawrence County. The Battle of Musgrove Mill was a turning point in the war. It was a Patriot victory, which followed defeat at Camden and Charleston. Also, the Battle of Old Hammond Store was a major turning point. It happened just 2 weeks before the Battle of Cowpens, which was a major victory for the Patriots. The Battle of Old Hammond Store, a victory for the Patriots, caused the Loyalists to go to ground. They did not fight. They did not march and fight at Cowpens. Only 50 Loyalists went to Cowpens. And of the Patriots, they were emboldened because of their victory. And 1,000 marched to Cowpens and helped win that important victory. The Battle of Yorktown, of course, most people thought was the end of the war. But the month after that, Bloody Bill Cunningham started his Bloody Scout, rampaging through the back country, killing Patriots, destroying and burning their property. And Hayes Station was one of those sites. We have numerous sites on our trail. We encourage you to come and visit and learn what happened here, learn your past, and tell the stories to your children and your grandchildren. I'm Diane Culbertson. I'm on the Lawrence County 250 Committee and the State 250 Commission. We have developed a trail to show people what happened in Lawrence County during the American Revolution. An interesting fact about this site in Gray Court is that it's on the old Georgia Road where the stagecoaches went to Georgia. And they would stop at the Dora stagecoach stop just right across the railroad, which is still there.
Hello, I'm Paul Wood, a retired United Methodist minister and an historian of the American Revolution. I'm standing at Langston Baptist Church on Langston Road outside of Clinton, South Carolina. Behind me, a few hundred yards, not the church property, but on beyond the church property, is the old home place of the Langston family. What we're talking about here is the heroine of the American Revolution, Dicey Langston Springfield. But let me tell you about her parents first. Her dad was from Virginia. Her mother was from North Carolina. They met and married at young ages, had a few children, and then made their way to South Carolina, to what is now Lawrence County. In those days, the royal government of South Carolina was encouraging people to move into this part of the state, and they would give land. They would grant 100 acres, 200, 300 acres. So Solomon Langston, Dicey's father, probably got about 300 acres, just in the woods a few hundred yards from here. Dicey had 3 brothers who were older than she, so when the Revolutionary War started, they joined the war as patriots. Dicey was quite young when the war started. Their father also participated in the war. Solomon was a lieutenant in the 1st Spartan Regiment and fought at the Battle of Stono Ferry, which is near Charleston. What surprises a lot of people is that this part of South Carolina had a bad mix, a volatile mix of Tories, those who supported the king and did not want independence, and patriots or rebels who did want this to become its own country, free, independent, with its own constitution, without answering to Parliament in London. So I know that's hard to understand, but a lot of people in this part of South Carolina did not want that rebellion. They were content, for any number of reasons, to remain part of the British Empire. So when the revolution broke out in 1775, fighting broke out here among the people. They were furious with each other. Parts of it were old feuds between people you can't even understand or recognize. And part of it was, like I said, serious differences of opinion about this war, should it be fought or not. So life was tough for the Tories when patriots surrounded them, and life was tough vice versa for the patriots. And that's the way it was here in this part of Lawrence County. At least half of the white people who lived here at that time, were Tories, loyalists, loyal to the king. So Dicey's father took part in the war. Dicey's brothers, older brothers, took part in the war. It seemed that the war was winding down in 1781, and that's the year that Dicey turned 15 years old. Her father was not able to be the sort of father and man of the house that we would imagine. We think he was injured, that he was disabled at this Battle of Stono Ferry near Charleston. He was not there to defend the family, to be the traditional man of the house. So responsibility fell on Dicey's shoulders, a 15-year-old. Now, I'm calling her a young woman, you see. We might think of a 15-year-old female as a girl nowadays, but when you were 13 or 14, you became a woman. In fact, Dicey got married the very next year at age 16. So Dicey was out in the community, from this house to that house, probably bartering for food and this and that, buying things, doing things that maybe her father would have done, but he just couldn't go out and do it. And they were surrounded by loyalists. She knew where her brother James was. He's a captain of a company of patriot militiamen. She knew where they were camped or where they worked out of to carry out their own raids. And around their house one day in their community, she heard a very disturbing message. A Tory group was planning to ambush her brother's group the very next day. The very next day. Here's the most famous thing and most important thing I think that Dicey did. And this is proven fact. This is not some legend. When the sun went down that night and everyone settled in to go to sleep, Dicey did not go to sleep. She got up, secretly left the house, and began walking. From here, it's not too far away to a road that we call South Carolina 49. Well, back in those days, it would have been a simple trail, maybe started as a deer trail, maybe an Indian trail. But that road, as we call it now, that trail led to the Enoree River. The Enoree River is, by the way, Dicey took it 4 or 5, maybe 6 miles from where their home was. She walked all the way to the river and then crossed it on her own in the dark. On the other bank of the river, she continued walking and found her brother and his company of patriot militiamen. She warned them what was about to happen, this ambush. It said that she recognized that they were hungry and she had time, so she even fixed them breakfast. Then through the dark, she makes her way back home. She leaves behind patriots who are now dispersing, and they're not going to be caught in that ambush. And she makes it back to her home, back to that cabin, before the sun comes up, before anybody realizes what she has done. We admire Dicey Langston Springfield enormously for what she did, not just for family, but for us. She was a spy, though an unofficial spy. She was not a soldier, but she was doing spying. And then she helped others to survive the war. There are other stories told about Dicey, who lived so close by here, just maybe 400 yards away. There was a time when Tories got into their cabin and threatened her father at gunpoint, saying, "We think you know more about these patriots, including your son James, than you're letting on." They also suspected that Dicey was the one who had warned that group. So they pointed a gun at him and said, "You need to deal with this. You need to tell us what you know." Dicey stepped in. She stepped between the gun and her father and said, "If you're going to kill my father, you've got to kill me first." They backed away. End of the crisis. A similar episode when Dicey was out in the community. She was stopped by some Tories, and they insisted at gunpoint that she tell them what she knew about the location of Patriot forces. She refused. In fact, she pulled a kerchief from her blouse, held it in front of herself, and said, "You can shoot me, but I'm not going to tell you what I know." Another story about Dicey is the day that her brother James left a rifle with her. He left a rifle with her and said, "Please keep this hidden away, and if I need it, I'll send some of my privates over back to the house here." And James didn't dare go home. "I'll have them to get the rifle." And he gave her a password. "Don't give this rifle to anybody," he said, "unless they can give you the password." So there came a time when 2 or 3 of these patriot men showed up at the door. They were welcome inside. They asked for her brother's rifle. Dicey went to get it out of its hiding place. She went back in front of them where they were, and only then did she remember that she had to hear a password before she was allowed to give the rifle. Well, she said, "What's the password?" And they said, "Oh, we've got you now. We've got the gun." And she pointed the gun right at them and said, "Who's got the gun?" They burst out laughing. They told her the password, and they all loved her for that. They compared Dicey to her brave brother, James. There's a legend on top of that story And the legend is that one of those Patriot privates who showed up was a young man named Springfield, Thomas Springfield. See, that's who she married a year later when they were both 16 years of age. Soon after the American Revolution ended, Dicey and Thomas Springfield married. They began to have children here. Maybe they lived in the same cabin with her parents. We don't know. She began to have children, and then after a few years, Thomas Springfield was granted land in what is now Greenville County. That had been Indian territory. It was out of bounds for white settlers to move into that part of the state of South Carolina. But then it was opened up, and the state wanted to award or thank patriots for the service that they had rendered during the American Revolution. So he bought land in what is now the city of Greenville. Then he swapped around and bought land just outside of what is now the town of Travelers Rest, South Carolina. Travelers Rest is north of Greenville. I hope you'll go there someday to this beautiful little town. Oh, do they honor Dicey. There's a large monument placed in her memory just in front of where she and Thomas lived and raised their family. Dicey, according to her obituary, gave birth to 22 children. Now, it's been proven that at least 15 of them, maybe 16 or 17, made it to adulthood. You know how tough it was to be an infant in those days, how dangerous childbirth and infancy were. Dicey had all of these children. They grew up there just outside of Travelers Rest. Her husband was a successful farmer. He became the head of the board of trustees of a new Methodist church that formed in the area. When Dicey died in 1832, the obituary reported the number of children that she had and reported her to be a heroine of the American Revolution. Indeed, she was. The Daughters of the American Revolution are that great legacy organization. The only women who can join it, only women, have to be able to prove that they are descendants of someone who participated in the American Revolution for the patriot cause. Well, Dicey was not a soldier. She never served under anyone's command or commission, but by George, they decided if Dicey was the patriot she was, and she was, I promise you, then any woman who could prove lineage back to her could join the Daughters of the American Revolution. It's a great organization, and now well over 100 women have joined the DAR, having proven that they are direct descendants of brave Dicey Langston, who grew up here near Clinton, South Carolina, and spent the rest of her life as an adult near Fountain Inn, South Carolina. I encourage you to come here to Langston Baptist Church or to go to Travelers Rest. By the way, how did it get the name Langston Baptist Church? Dicey's father gave property to this new Baptist congregation, and eventually they named themselves for him. This is the Langston Baptist Church. This is not the original facility. It burned. It was destroyed. So they moved out here and built this beautiful structure on Langston Road. Thanks for listening. I know you appreciate as much as I do the history of this nation and what it took for us to establish our independence.